talking about a moon in Cancer is talking about pretty much the epitome, the perfect archetype of the moon, and the needs of the moon, and that part of ourself which is receptive, and that means sensitive and reflective, and needs emotional comfort and emotional security, and quite often physical security. The part of us which wants to be protected, the part of us that calls for soothing and nourishment and all things that are very almost womb-like or infant-like, in the sense that is a part of us there which doesn't want to have control, doesn't need to have things figured out. There's just that receptive, almost pure in a way part of us that is just what it is and is completely responsive and reactive to its environment. So you can imagine in the case of Moon in Cancer that the subconscious wiring and the conditioning and the inner patterning to environment here is very much there's a natural defensiveness and a natural want for protecting and securing things that keep us emotionally balanced and allows for some sort of emotional stability, because the moon being something that causes the ebb and flow of the tides, ebb and flow of the emotions, is never just stable or one color or one tempo. It's extraordinarily changeable and could almost say, you could say, argue in a predictable sense, but very much still changeable. There's a part of us there that one day we're feeling like this about something, and the next day or the next week we never said that, we were actually feeling this. I mean, this is why someone with a moon in Cancer can be someone that's hard to satisfy sometimes, and hence the need to develop ways to self-nurture and self-satisfy is really important, because the changeability makes it so hard to be content through other people. The needs for security and attention and love usually are quite high, and I mean, there's definitely cases where we have a loving partner with moon in Cancer and someone else, if we're a moon in Cancer and our needs are met. There's definitely circumstances for that, and I'm not saying that that's a complete rule, but in general, moon in Cancer always will want more, in a sense, because it is that more primal part of us that's been I guess more or less intensified here. The want for support and nourishment, and because there is the changeability and because it is a reigning need here, it can be hard to have a complete and total contained security in like an earthy sense. It's water moves, our emotions change, and accounting for that, especially because no one else rarely is psychic enough to read what we want and our changing moods all the time. It's almost impossible, and the need for, again, self-regulation and self-nurturing is really important here, purely for stability in relationships, inner emotional stability. The tendency to want to have a home environment which is secure and private and allows reflection and allows just some sort of sense of peace, and nostalgia quite often is a theme, and it's something that gives us memories of our childhood, our inner childhood, or our inner sense of it's not the adulterated part of ourselves that wants a home life that's got that almost an imaginative tone. It's very much our emotional self feels most connected when we have that sort of security and privacy and almost nostalgia there. So nostalgia meaning any sort of like a homeliness, again, whether from our own childhood, anything that our own parents had, or things that have come from our parents or families. Anything when people come by, it provides that nurturing, nourishing kind of homeliness. Definitely some greenery, some water, green and blue hues, photographs, memories, and depending on the house that the moon is in, the kind of things that will nurture you specifically and give that kind of nostalgic and homely feel will change a little bit. But ultimately, that's the overall feel that we're trying to get here. Something that almost hints towards being connected, and being connected usually to the natural world, hence why I was saying greenery, or some sort of, whether it's a waterfall or some sort of blue hues, or anything that brings us back to nature, but not necessarily in a hands-on way, but just sort of makes us feel like we're connected to it in some way. Okay, really important, I feel, especially for emotional security and stability, is the need for really good diet. And by really good diet, I mean allowing yourself to have access to a lot of water dense foods, a lot of vegetables, and some fruits. And there is a tendency towards sweetness with moon in Cancer, a tendency towards having a sweet tooth. But definitely allow their room to have some sweets and some indulgences, but a primary emphasis on giving a lot of nutrient-rich food, a lot of watery and mineral-rich foods. I'm talking greens here. I'm talking kelp and even some root vegetables if there is some bit of a blood sugar issue. So sweet potatoes, anything that can ground you enough but doesn't lean towards creating a food addiction, because moon in Cancer, it doesn't necessarily indicate that there will be a food addiction, but that food will be often a sense of comfort, as is the absence of. So if there's some sort of emotional imbalance with a moon in Cancer, I want from abstaining from food can be here. And there's other issues that can trigger this and cause this, but any sort of eating issue where there's an abstinence is more of an indication of other emotional imbalances that need to be addressed. And so creating some sort of self-nurture and taking some sort of responsibility for your own emotional stability and giving yourself all the love and attention you need is one way to rectify this, rather than feeling it's very easy to fall victim here and very easy to blame where we're not getting enough attention or enough love from our outer world. But realizing this is something we need to do for ourselves, and ultimately that's the most perfect way to be anyway, because not only do we have complete control over how we nurture ourselves, but once we are nurtured and we do give that to ourselves, there's that irony and that paradox of the universe or the world or whatever you want to call it, where when we self-nurture, we can ultimately be bringing that in from others, because there's not so much of that clinginess or the need to try and take from other. There's if your cup's full, the tendency to bring in someone with their cup full as well is high, as is the ability, if your cup's full and being able to share, then again the tendency for someone wanting to give back is high as well. So making sure there's no sort of martyrdom with giving and sharing and giving and expecting that we deserve love and attention back, or some sort of something back, some sort of energy back is basically what I'm trying to say here. So we give when we're full, we give when we're feeling like, not even when we're full, but giving when we're not depleted. I would never recommend for a Moon and Cancer person to keep giving when you're already depleted, because ultimately it always leads to taking down the line, and especially making you feel empty and that you can't be of use for at least some time until you get yourself sorted. So I would definitely suggest a lot of self-nurturing, a lot of time by the water, a lot of time eating good foods, a lot of time giving yourself freedom to feel how you feel, listening to the music you want to listen to, getting in touch with those parts of yourself that just need expression. And once you give yourself all the room to do this, I'll be quite interested to know if you still have that same tendency to need the same amount of attention and validation from others. I mean, I'm not saying it will disappear, but give it to yourself first, and you're worth it for starters, and it was never up to anyone else to give that to you as much as what you require. And I don't know your childhood, and I don't know what you've been exposed to, but just if you claim responsibility and you take it for yourself, and no one's making you do this, but as a strong suggestion, it is something that will make you feel not only a sense of self-security, but it will also give you a sense of self-importance and of worth, and one where you no longer feel like the world owes you anything. You just owe it to yourself to feel this way. And I went somewhere I didn't think I was going to go just then, but it's just self-nourishment is the most important thing here. That's my main focus, and the point that I want to convey is self-nourishment and self-love, and not in a hoarding sense, the sense that we become overly selfish, but because once you reach a point of contentment, you can pass that forward. And that is the best thing you can do, because you can be the most nurturing and nourishing person to be with, the best listener, the best partner, when you give that to yourself first. So I hope this was of use to you, and yeah, any questions, like always, just post a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Bye.